I'm Rabbi Marilee Gordon of McHenry County Jewish Congregation. If you're looking at this right when you got it, it's exactly 1 week before Passover. So I'd like to go further into what are we doing when we sit down at Passover. And typically at a Seder, we read from a Haggadah. And if you can see here on the table, I have, 8 different Haggadahs laid out here. And there are hundreds of Haggadahs. So maybe you have a favorite one you use in your family, or maybe it's time to look for something new. They're all different, right? They have different graphics. They have different layouts. But one thing they have in common is they each have the 15 steps that make up the Seder. And that starts with sanctification, what we call Kiddush, right? And there's 2 ways we do that. We do that by lighting candles, and we do it by pronouncing that this is a sacred occasion, and that's how we start our Seder. But then we're going to get into the more specific parts for Passover. And because our table is kind of like an altar, we have a symbolic hand washing. Sometimes just the leader dunks his hands or her hands just a little bit, because it's not the hand washing that comes before eating, it's that we're about to do something on the sacred altar of our Seder plate, our Seder table. Then we take the parsley. Step 3 is to recognize that it's spring and green things are growing. Like the tulips that are starting to come up in my yard, except we can't eat that. So we take something like celery or parsley or whatever, and we acknowledge that not only are we celebrating our time of freedom, but the fact that it's spring. And we certainly have a lot to celebrate when we come to the end of winter, right? Then we have the matzah. We break the matzah, we hold it up, we say this is the bread of affliction that our ancestors baked and ate as they left slavery in Egypt. Let all who are hungry come and eat. And then we hide part of it for the children to find later. Then we tell the story of how we as a people went from degradation to glory, from slavery to freedom. And included in that, of course, is the 4 questions, Dayenu, where we say all these different things that would have been enough for us, but there was so much more that we have to be grateful for. And then we wash in a more serious manner, because we are about to eat matzah. So we say the 2 blessings, the regular hamotzi, and then the mitzvah blessing that we're about to eat matzah. And then we have the bitter herb. Then finally, we have what we call the Hillel sandwich, and we have our festival meal. Now, all this is happening while we have a Seder plate on the table. And many of them are round. This one is from Spain. It was a present from my mother when I was ordained as a rabbi. And it has on it a little disc for each of the symbolic foods that we taste during the Seder. And it's interesting the way we use all of our senses at the Seder to tell our story and to absorb within us the fact that although our ancestors started out in slavery, here we are, all free. Now, after we eat, we have to find that afikomen. Someone has to find it and redeem it. So that is the last thing that we eat at the Seder. Then we have the blessing after the meal. We have songs of praise to God, and finally the conclusion of the Seder. And somewhere in there we have Elijah, who comes to every household and has a little sip of wine, right? Now, a Seder plate doesn't necessarily look like this. Here's a very modern one, beautiful modern one that I have. And you can just even have your own platter and the 6 things around the Elijah's cup without any decoration at all. But we like to practice what's called Hidur Mitzvah, adorning the mitzvah, and that's why we have a beautiful Seder plate, and we set a beautiful table for our Seder. Now, we are going to have a Seder the second night of Passover, so I hope you've already responded that you're going to be coming to that at the synagogue if you need a Seder to come to. That'll be Thursday, April 2nd, because the first Seder, no joke, is April 1st. So, have a very sweet Passover.